Hey everybody, it's Femtrooper, and today we're going to be talking about gaming now versus then. So I thought a really fun topic would be to talk about gaming sort of 20 years ago, and it probably applies to gaming 25 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever. And then talk about gaming now because I find that it's really changed a lot, and we'll discuss some key topics that I had in mind of discussing. So a huge thing that I find, now versus then or then versus now is renting versus buying. Yes, people obviously still bought back then, including myself. I owned games when I was a kid. However, I found that I tried way more games because of renting being an option. Now you don't really rent games anymore, so instead I basically look up, reviews, I watch, YouTube Let's Plays, I have friends that I ask about, oh, is this game good, is this game bad, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But back then, we didn't really have that so much. So you relied on magazines, word of mouth, commercials, and renting. That was the big one. You kind of just, you rented, you went, yeah, I like it, and then you maybe ended up buying it. Because of renting, I actually didn't own a lot as a kid, because my parents, they'd buy me a game if I thought, yeah, she's gonna play it all the time, versus like, So I rented lots of games several times, but tons of times actually, but I didn't own them. And I think that's because my parents would be like, every now and then I rented it, and it's just not worth spending $80 on it. Makes me wonder though if there were some games that I rented that we did actually spend $80 or more on. I have no idea. But there were games I rented constantly and then eventually bought or just didn't. So I feel like I was always exposed to more games than now, because I don't constantly change up the game I'm playing because of the games I like to play, which tend to be really long. So I'm not as exposed to as many. I'm not constantly renting racing games and platformers and puzzle games, versus back then I was sort of renting everything. The other key point is I don't buy a million games because it's expensive to just go and buy a $79.99 game and buy like 10 of them. I don't do that. I do my research and I'm like, yep, like Mario Odyssey, for instance. Love the game. I knew I was going to want it. I have no problem spending $80 on that. I'm not going to spend $80 though on 10 Nintendo games or 10, PlayStation games at once. So that's sort of the difference. One key thing I've also find about gaming now versus then is help. Back then, there wasn't the internet. So in order to get help, if you were stuck, you asked your friends, you maybe actually called Nintendo. I know it sounds ridiculous, but yes, I think I did it one time. And I don't know if my mom was mad at me for that call, because I think we had to pay for that. I asked my cousin, who constantly was helping me whenever I'd see him at Christmas time, and he would beat certain levels for me and like certain platformers that I was stuck at. And you just had friends come over, beat stuff for you or beat stuff for them and help each other out, and that's sort of how you figured it out. Another thing is, as a kid, you kind of have 100% free time, so you don't mind spending 10 hours in like a dungeon, because you're just chilling, you're just hanging out. I don't have patience for that anymore, so I will instantly look something up if I'm stuck, which is maybe bad, maybe that's terrible and you guys don't care for that, but that's just how it goes. Now we have the internet, so I have, I can go on YouTube, I can look things up, I can also ask friends from all over the world. If I have a friend who lives in New York, I can ask them. If I have a friend who lives in Japan, I can ask them. I couldn't really do that back in the 90s, so it's kind of cool that there is that opportunity. And then just watching Let's Plays, just seeing like, oh, that's how you go there. Instead of asking, I can just watch the part that I'm at and then be like, okay, I'm going to go there. Another point that I have about gaming now versus then is the fact that it's sort of a small world versus big world picture. Back then, it was a small world. So what I mean by that is you tried games, like you rented them at Blockbuster because they looked kind of cool, or you liked the box art, or you had bought the latest issue of Nintendo Power and you were like really hyped about it, so you bought it or you rented it at Blockbuster or local video store or whatever. You would maybe see a commercial on TV and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, I can't wait for that. You'd go to a friend's house and they'd have the game, and you'd be like, oh my god, I need to have that game. Or even if I didn't have it, every time I went to that friend's house, we'd play that game and I'd be like so hyped about it. It wasn't, the community was your community of friends as opposed to like a global community. It was really just like your friend across the street has the latest game that you want to play, and so you'd go there and you'd play that with your friends. So it's kind of a really small world situation. Now I find it's a big world situation. So, okay, for instance, when a new game's coming out, or I think, oh, I see like a trailer for it or something, I do all this research and I look up, what is that? Who's the developer? Who's the publisher? And, you know, I'm on the internet constantly like, what's this game all about? I'm finding out everything possible about it before it comes out, which is not what used to happen. Now, I can just watch E3 conferences live as they happen, and then sometimes they'll advertise a game that's not coming out for 3 years, and so there's this hype and build up for months and sometimes years. And I found as a kid, not quite the same. It was kind of like you would all hearsay, oh, you know, this game's coming out, I want it, and then there'd be like a commercial and you get hyped, and then you just ask for it for Christmas or something. So you also I didn't buy stuff day one. Now I buy stuff day one because I'm really looking forward to it, because I know exactly the release date and I know all this stuff. Again, this is also kid versus adult, because I realize if you were like 25 or 40 or whatever age in the 90s or the 80s, then there's a little bit of a difference here, because you had your own money to buy stuff. Well, when I was 10, I didn't have the money to buy stuff in the 90s, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Now I have friends who live all across the world, so I get all sorts of opinions on games. I have friends of different nationalities, different belief systems, all sorts of stuff, and I can ask them, and we can all play games, and we can all enjoy the same things. So I have this, instead of this tiny knit community of friends locally, like your buddy across the street, now I have friends who live all over the world. You know, some who may live in my city, some who may live in another country halfway across the world. So it's really cool that I can have all these friends and talk about video games and movies and manga and anime and stuff like that. And it's just really cool. I also find out things instantly now. Now there's no like, you know, you wait for a Nintendo Power issue or you wait for your friend to just have it. Now it's like that. Like if I hear that a game is coming out, or they're thinking of making this, or there's a Nintendo conference or something like that, then it's like, it's instant. I hear about it that day, sometimes that hour. So everything is so instant now with information. So there's not a lot of secrets anymore. There's not the same kind of wonder. There is, but like Mario Odyssey, for instance, I'm using it just because it just came out and it's fantastic. It's a great game. I'm not slamming it or anything, but I saw all this footage on YouTube, and the song that was playing all the time, and I was getting really hyped, and I even knew the names of some of the levels before the game came out, and I feel like that would have never happened to me. Like if I, you know, I'm trying to think, I have it somewhere, I swear, I'm gonna have to find it, but I have this Banjo-Kazooie VHS mailer that I got. I don't even know how I got it, but I did somehow, and it hyped me for Banjo-Kazooie. But that was like the difference. I had a VHS sent to me in the mail showing me clips of Banjo-Kazooie. Now I just Google or YouTube, you know, whatever game it is, and then bam, it's right there. I can watch, you know, 1 million people review it right now. I can listen to the soundtrack right now. So not a lot of wonder and secrets, but there is to some extent, because you can choose not to look at it. And also, it's not like the whole game was exposed. The secrets and the wonder are kind of gone, and that's not just because of YouTube and the internet and all that kind of stuff. It's slightly because I'm an adult now, so a little bit of the wonder is kind of gone. You can't ever replicate that, but just something to think about. So those are some things I thought about with gaming now versus then. Just something to think about, and something I thought, oh, you know what, I kind of wanted to compare the two, and it made me start thinking, like, it's so much different now, you know, how I buy games, how I play games, try games, learn about games, get help in games, all that kind of stuff. It's so different from when I was a kid to what it is now. Anyway, something to think about, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Please like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.